JJ Math. Now we get to difficult trinomials. So don't get put off. It is still 100% possible, but unfortunately many students decide not to learn this and find other ways to solve this. Okay, so in grade 11 you learn a new technique, but I'm unfortunately not allowed to tell you in grade 10. So I did a separate video on that, so just go check the quadratic formula in the grade 11 playlist if you want to know how to do trinomials without this. But in grade 10, your teacher's not going to mark the quadratic formula, so you'll have to do this method or a similar method that your teacher can show you in class. So the official steps are here in the purple block. I'm going to try and make it easier, so just take it step by step with me, and let's see how to do complicated trinomials. So I know this is a complicated trinomial. That is if there's something in front of x squared. Okay, so in grade 9 trinomials, it was always a 1. But then when they ramp it up, they change it to something else. And the reason it's now more difficult is now I need to consider both the first term and the last term and write their factor pairs and choose the right combination to get the middle number. So what are the factor pairs of 6? This is a 1 and a 6 and a 2 and a 3. Okay. I also need to flip them for one of the numbers. So let's just make this 6 times 1 and then 3 times 2. So now if I write down the factor pairs of the last term, this is going to be 1 times 10 or 2 times 5. Okay, so step 1, write down the factor pairs of the first and the last number. Now I'm just going to check for a combination. So what I mean with that is I'm going to say, okay, I'm first going to work with these two and then with these two. So now I need to cross multiply, and if the last sign is a minus, I need to subtract the products. If it's a plus, then I need to add them. So I need to multiply and subtract to get 11. So in this case, that's going to give me a 2. That's going to give me a 30. If I subtract them, I get 28. That's not the right combination. I move on to the next one. So I'm sticking with the green pair that I have, and I'm moving on to this one. Okay, let's see if that maybe works. Okay, so 2 times 2 gives me 4. 3 times 5 gives me 15. Okay, and now if I subtract them, I get 11. So I know that is the right combination. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite only the ones that I chose in the right order. And then what it means is these two form the first bracket, and these two form the second bracket. Now remember, the green numbers was connected to x squared, so I can just put an x next to each of them. And those are the brackets I'm looking for. So let's just write that down officially. So I know this is going to be a 3x and a 2, and then in the other bracket, this is going to be a 2x and a 5. Okay, so I was quite lucky to get that fairly quickly, but sometimes it takes a while to choose the right combination. And remember, if you don't get it, you need to flip some of the factor pairs. So that's why I have 1 times 6 and 6 times 1. Now I can check what the signs need to be. So remember, I said 2 times 2 is 4, and then 3 times 5 gave me 15. Now I'm going to look at the middle sign. I want a plus. So obviously the bigger number needs to get the plus, and the smaller one needs to get a minus. But now I need to see where in the brackets do I put a plus and a minus. So these two gave me the 4, and I want the 4 to be negative. I can't put a minus in the second bracket because the 2 is in the first part of the bracket, so I'm going to put a minus there. These two gave me the 15, and that needs to be positive. There we go. Those are the brackets for this trinomial. So let's do a few of these so you can see the method in action and then try to use it yourself. Step 1 with this, I'm going to rewrite the factor pairs of each. So I know 5 is just going to be 5 times 1 or 1 times 5. Then I can move over to the 8 and then say, okay, but the factors of 8 are going to be 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Okay, so I don't flip both of them, I just flip one. So only the green one in this case. Now I need to cross multiply to see if I add them, what gives me 14. So let's take these two and these two. If I multiply there, I get a 5. If I multiply there, I get an 8. That gives me 13, so it's very close, but it's not the answer. Okay, I'm going to stick to the 1 and the 5, but then I'm going to move over to this pair. And this gives me a 10, and that gives me a 4. That will give me 14. Okay, great. So how do I get the brackets? I know I used a 1 and a 5, a 2 and a 4. The top two form the first bracket. The bottom two form the second bracket. You can switch the order if you want to and put the 5 and the 4 bracket first. Doesn't matter. Okay, but I know the green ones were connected to an x. There we go. So let's just then say this is 1x and a 2, and then this is 5x and a 4. So what are the signs? If your trinomial ends on a plus, you are quite lucky because then both brackets will have the first sign. So very easy, I don't need to worry. But if it ends on a minus, then you need to check. That's it. That's the final answer to this question. Great. Question B. I am now not going to use colors to just help you speed up when you're doing this in tests. But if it's tricky, please use highlighters, use colors, just to make it easy. It is extremely important, especially when you practice, to get the right answer before you focus on speeding through a paper and cutting down a few seconds at the end. Okay, so what are the factors of 20? It's going to be 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Then of 9, this is 1 times 9, 3 times 3, or 9 times 1 if I flip the last one. Now I need to choose the correct pair. That, if I subtract them, I get a 24. Okay, so I'm looking for quite a large number minus a small number. So sometimes you can just try and guess the correct combinations and then test them. So I don't need to go through everything because there will be about 10 combinations of answers with these amounts of factor pairs. So I know I'm going to look for a big one. So I'm going to take a 2 and a 10. And I'm going to multiply that with the 3 and the 3. So I'm just testing to see, okay, is it maybe that combination? And then if it doesn't work, I'm going to choose other combinations. So now if I say 10 times 3, that gives me a 30. And if I say 2 times 3, that gives me a 6. If I minus them, I will get 24. So I was quite lucky I chose the correct ones. So the top two form the first bracket, so that's a 2 and 3. And the bottom two form the next bracket. I know these need x's next to them. And then I can just go and fill in the signs. So this would be a 2x and a 3. And then the other one would be a 10x and a 3. Okay, so in this case, when I looked at the factor combinations, this one gave me a 30 and this one gave me a 6. I need a positive 30 and a negative 6. So there, that gives me the 30. I want this to be positive, so I'm going to put the plus there. The outside ones needs to give me minus 6, so I'm going to put a minus in the second bracket. And that is now the final answer to this question. Question C. So in this case, 18 will be 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. With the 10, 1 times 10, 2 times 5. I need to flip one of them. I'm going to flip this one. Okay, let's see if we can find the right combination. So in this case, I want to subtract in order to get a 3. Now, 3 is very close to each other, so I don't need to take massive numbers. I don't think I'm going to use the 18 because it's going to make one big number and one small number. So let's just test and see. If I take this one and this one, do I maybe get the combination? So this gives me a 12, and this gives me a 15. And great, if I subtract them, I get a 3. So to get the brackets, I know the top two factors that I chose will go in one bracket. So there's a 3 and there's a 2. And the bottom two goes in the second bracket. So there's a 6 and a 5. Now I need x squared for the left part of each bracket. So I'm just going to put an x and an x. And now I need to figure out the signs. So the pair that gave me the 15 needs a minus. So that was the 3 times 5. So I can put the minus there. And then the other pair needs to get a plus. There we go. I solved that trinomial. So the difficult part here is to choose the correct combinations. So remember, if the middle number is quite small, I need the numbers to be close together. So not 1 and 18, because that's going to give me a massive difference between the two numbers I need to subtract. But if the number is quite big, like question B where it was a 24, I want a big number minus a small number. So then I would not choose combinations that are close together. Question D. So now the order is a bit different. I know in a previous video I swapped the order when x squared was at the back. But that was when x squared did not have a minus. I never want a minus in the first part of these trinomials. It's just going to make things complicated. So in this case, I'm just going to stick to the order that is given. Okay, so I'm going to see what times what gives me 15. 1 times 15, 3 times 5. Then I can flip those. So 5 times 3 and 15 times 1. Then I'm going to check the factors of 6. So 1 times 6, 2 times 3. I now need a combination that if I subtract them, it gives me a 1. So I'm not going to take the 15s. They are quite far from 1, so I'm going to have a big number minus a small number. Okay, so I'm just going to guess and say maybe it would be these ones. So let's test. Okay, if I say 3 times 5, that gives me a 15. 2 times 3 gives me a 6. If I subtract, it's going to give me a 9, so it's definitely not those ones. But let me flip the order of the first one and maybe see then. Okay, so 2 times 5 gives me a 10, and 3 times 3 gives me a 9. That does give me a 1. So perfect. Those are the combinations I'm going to use. So if I make the brackets, my first bracket is going to be a 3 and a 2, and then the other bracket is going to be a 5 and a 3. So in this case, I need to put the x's in the right-hand side of each bracket. So this is going to be a 2x, and this is going to be a 3x. Now I need to check the signs. I need to get to -1, so the 10 needs a minus, and the 9 needs a plus. This combination in the middle gave me the 10, 2 times 5, so they need the minus. and then the other ones get the plus. Okay, guys, that is trinomials for grade 10 and up. I know the steps look quite daunting, but if you just follow the factor pairs and cross multiplication, just stay patient. Sometimes it does take a while to get the right combination, but you will get there. Keep on practicing, and I'm sure it will be fine.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JJ, man!